Hello, you've just caught me enjoying a hot chocolate, and I'm just about to read my favourite Christmas story, a Caerphilly Communities for Work Christmas Carol. This is the story of Amy and how she struggled getting through her interviews. Now, getting a job isn't always an easy process, and there are many steps to getting there. One of these is the job interview. So it all starts on a cold afternoon, not long before Christmas. Not long ago, on a day that was quite chilly, in a house on a street somewhere in Caerphilly. A mother was waiting as her daughter was due to be home by 5 from her interview. Then earlier than planned, at 4:15, tired and cold, Amy stepped through the door.
How did it go?
Mother asked with glee.
Not good at all. Just please let me be.
I'm sure it wasn't that bad. What do you think went wrong?
I was in there 10 minutes. That's not very long. They said they would call, but I won't hold my breath. I gave it my all. I don't have anything left.
And just then the phone began to ring.
That could be them.
Mother said with a grin. Amy answered the phone and nodded with a sigh. She put it back down.
I didn't get it. I could cry.
It will be fine. Just try again.
But I've tried so many times. Next time will be 10. I don't know where it is that I'm going wrong. I tried to be positive and I've tried to stay strong. But what else can I do? I don't seem to be progressing. And the questions they're asking, all I'm doing is guessing.
She walked to her room and got into bed, trying to make sense of all that was said.
I give up,
she said, and began to sob.
Why do I bother? I'll never get a job.
And after a while, what time she could not tell, as night came to Caerphilly, to sleep Amy fell. The clock ticked away, but as it struck 1, a light filled the room as bright as the sun. Amy awoke startled and rubbing her eyes. A ghost stood before her.
Who are you?
She said with surprise.
I am the ghost of interviews past.
What do you want with me?
Amy asked.
Tonight you'll be visited by 2 of my friends. We'll show you where you've gone wrong, and then by night's end, you'll be much more prepared for your next interview.
But I've tried my best. What more can I do?
Oh, really?
The ghost smiled and then expressed.
You really believe that you've done your best? Then I'm glad I'm here. Are you ready?
She asked.
But where are we going?
The ghost replied.
Your past.
And then in a flash the room was no longer there. Instead, Amy saw herself smartly dressed in a chair.
This is the first interview that you had.
I remember this one. It wasn't that bad.
Then it may be worth looking just one more time. You may be surprised to know that it didn't go fine.
So your biggest weakness we'd now like you to state.
A weakness, you say? Well, I'm often quite late. I stay up all night and sleep through the day.
You think that's a good answer?
The ghost said with dismay.
You can clearly see the interviewers aren't impressed, that you find it quite difficult to get some rest.
I had no idea, but now I can see. The answer I gave wasn't a good first impression of me.
Now we must move on.
The ghost then said.
To an interview you attended with sunglasses on your head.
What's wrong with that? It was a hot sunny day.
Would you like to take off your sunglasses?
No thanks, I'm okay. Oh.
Amy could finally see.
Again, that's not a great first impression of me.
And finally,
The ghost said as they travelled once more.
where you'd lied to the panel before you even entered the door.
On your application form, we were impressed to see you got an A in your business GCSE.
Well, that's a funny story.
Amy sat there and laughed.
I was predicted an A, but I barely passed. In my actual exam, I was given an E. Oh no.
Amy sighed.
That's not a good first impression of me.
And suddenly they stood back in Amy's room.
So now you see where you went wrong, I assume.
I guess I see I didn't go about it in the right way, but I'm sure I didn't do any of those things today.
And with a burst of light the ghost was gone from view, and another stood before her as the clock struck 2.
I am the ghost of interviews present.
Oh, please let's not relive today's. It was terribly unpleasant. I did what I could, but I don't know why. I couldn't answer the questions no matter how hard I tried.
Then make sure that you always take time to discover how to improve from an interview and use in another.
And with that said, they were on their way to the interview Amy had earlier that day.
Thank you for coming. What do you know of our company?
You see, how was I to know? That one really stumped me.
But Amy, you see, you must be aware. Before an interview, you must prepare. If you'd just done some research, you would have been fine. There's plenty of information you can find out online.
But I didn't know that. I'd never have thought.
You would have if you'd asked for some support.
And with another flash in Amy's room they stood.
There's been so much that I've misunderstood.
Amy sighed.
I just really wish I'd made more of an effort and not been so foolish.
You see, the interviews, they may seem tough, and it may feel like your answers are never enough. But there are plenty of ways to prepare for the questions. Amy, listen carefully to others' advice and suggestions.
There was another flash and the ghost disappeared.
Is the worst behind me? Maybe not.
Amy feared. Suddenly another ghost appeared as the clock struck 3.
I am the ghost of interviews that could be.
Is it the future you'll show me? What things happen next?
The future, you see, is a little more complex. If you carry on with this routine, your interviews will continue just as they have been. But you can still change if you seek out some guidance. Asking for help is not rocket science.
But what else can I do? Please help me get better. All of this job seeking is just so much pressure.
Well, Amy, you see, you've already learned so much. Prepare, do research, get feedback and such. But if more help is needed, I know of one perk. You could ask for help from Communities for Work.
Communities for Work? Who are they? What's the price?
They are a free service that offer advice. They work one-to-one with you towards your CV, interviews and application forms. Any questions or problems you have at all, they'll work to solve no matter how big or how small.
So if I do all of this, I'll pass my next interview?
Amy, at the end of the day, it's all down to you.
And with a flash, the ghost was gone, leaving Amy with those words to reflect upon. She thought of the ghost's advice as she stared at the ceiling, and the lessons she'd learned, and soon she was dreaming. Later that morning, Amy awoke from her sleep. As soon as she opened her eyes from her bed, she did leap. She ran to the table and grabbed her phone and called Communities for Work, just as she was shown.
Thank you for calling. We'll be in touch,
they said, and shortly she was contacted by an employment mentor called Greg.
We'll start off by helping with your CV. Then we'll look at some techniques for when you're the interviewee.
Amy's confidence grew with leaps every day. She knew what to expect and what to say. She answered the questions, did research and prepared. She was determined, assured, and a little less scared. She attended an interview, but the job she did not get. But she wasn't dissuaded and didn't forget some advice that Greg gave when he called for a chat.
Don't forget, always ask for feedback.
She called back the company and listened to all that they said. She didn't get angry, but looked to work on it instead.
You were an amazing candidate with a good education. Unfortunately, the other person had a particular qualification.
So Amy called Greg, and straight away he did source through a training provider for her to attend a course. And the very next interview that she did attend came with a phone call with the happiest end. She got the job and expressed with glee.
This time, I definitely gave the best impression of me.
So there's happy Amy, somewhere in Caerphilly, in a house, on a street, on a day that was quite chilly. Our Amy is happy and everything feels right. So Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.